Good evening, and welcome to another episode of the Prince Hall Think Tank, a monthly conversation amongst Prince Hall Freemasons where we discuss topics relative to craft masonry. My name is Brother Antonio Caffey, and I'm a very proud past master of St. Mark's Lodge number 7, located in Columbus, Ohio, where Worshipful Brother Royston Snowden serves as our worshipful master. Our lodge was chartered in 1852 by the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Ohio, where currently the Honorable Jerry R. Ellison serves as most worshipful Grand Master. Before I let the other brothers introduce themselves, I would like to state that the views and opinions that are expressed by us tonight in no way reflect the views and opinions of the Grand Lodges and lodges in which we hold membership in. Also, if you have any questions, as always, please feel free to use the chat option on our YouTube page. And if we have time at the end of the conversation, we'll try and answer some of them. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page so that you can stay up to date with everything regarding the think tank. At this time, I'll let the brethren introduce themselves, starting with Brother Morgan. Brother Morgan.
Happy holidays, everybody. Abadigani for those who are celebrating Kwanzaa. And if you don't know the answer to that, today's first principle of Kwanzaa, who knows it?
Umoja.
Umoja. There we go. So happy Kwanzaa, everybody. My name is Past Master James R. Morgan III. I am proud to come to you from Corinthian Lodge 18, which operates under the auspices of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of the District of Columbia, where the Honorable Anthony B. Corbett is now serving as our new Most Worshipful Grand Master. So congratulations to him and his elected and appointed officers. I'm glad to be here, and I want to also say this episode is sponsored by James Morgan Jr. because I'm at my dad's house right now, hence the different background. But glad to be here with everybody. Look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Brother Jack.
Good evening, everyone. Happy holidays to you all. Brother Damian Jack, proud past master of Paul Drayton Lodge number 7 here in Charlotte, North Carolina, where worshipful Brother Sean Moy serves as our worshipful master. Our lodge is a constituent lodge under the auspices of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of North Carolina, where the Honorable Daniel L. D.T. Thompson serves as our 24th Most Worshipful Grand Master. It is an honor and pleasure to be with you here tonight. Of course, representing North Carolina, but tonight, as you can see through the shirt and with our special guest, I had to represent home, had to represent Harlem, and looking forward to the show tonight. So thank you all for taking your time to be out tonight.
Thank you, Brother Jack. And joining us for a second time, our good brother, Right Worshipful Kevin P. Wardali. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, brothers. It is my honor to be with you, brothers, again. You're all friends and good brothers who I truly appreciate. I am a proud past master of Adelphia Union Lodge number 14 under the auspices of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of the state of New York. At present presides Walter C. King Jr., our 48th Grand Master. I also bring greetings on behalf of my worshipful master, Rodney A. Hunter. And I'm glad to be with you, and I hope to bring a little bit of something, and I appreciate you, brothers.
Thank you, good brother. Just a quick note, Brother Dave Gillarm has a night off. He's in search for another Knicks win. So he's gonna be looking for that. I can say that because my Cleveland Cavaliers are playing extremely well this year. So yeah, we're gonna keep talking that.
I'm a big time Cleveland Cavaliers fan, Brother Kevin.
There you go, good brother.
That right there might be on like the print when they do the Prince Hall Think Tank highlight reel. That's gonna be up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is
Absolutely.
why me and Kathy got those gray hairs. I go back to World Be Free.
That was there you go, good brother. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
When Larry Dance won the slam dunk contest, changed my life.
Yeah, bro.
James is like, I wasn't born then.
No, I wasn't.
So tonight we're going to discuss lodge culture. With many of our lodges recently electing new worshipful masters, we thought it'd be a good idea to talk about why lodge culture is so important. Once again, we're pleased to have Brother Wardali with us this evening, who, as he already stated, is the past master of Adelphia Union Lodge number 14 for the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of New York. For those that don't know, this lodge has a great culture full of traditions and strong brotherhood. So without further ado, Brother Wardali, Thanks for presenting this evening, and the floor is yours, good brother.
All right, I'll present my screen. Also, I did forget to mention I am the Grand Treasurer of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge, so more power. I should always say that, like Grand Master, so I don't get myself killed. So this is how we're gonna do it, right, Morgan? I can control the slides.
I believe so. You should be able to.
All right, good. All right.
I want to say thank you for mentioning your position. The Prince Hall think tank. We will be sending an invoice. Let me stop.
I'm sure Right Worshipful Sandino Sanchez, the Grand Secretary, will receive that most haste. So I call this presentation the AUL 14 story. How building large culture builds and retains large membership in today's world. Because that's really what it's all about, right? It's how you build a culture that makes brothers want to come back, makes brothers stay, and then adds new brothers to the rolls. First, the bottom line is, why do we need new culture? And why do we need to focus on this? We need to do it because what we're doing right now just isn't working. And this is all true of my lodge, and I'll prove it so in a second. Membership numbers keep dropping. Many lodges are struggling financially. Morale amongst many members is low. Masonic education is poor or lacking, and participation is sparse and lacking. And that's what we find in a lot of lodges, even in my own jurisdiction, across the Prince Hall family, right? And to make it personal, when I came into Adelphia Union in 2008, where were we? We had 37 members on the roll. 11 brothers were retired and no longer lived in New York City. Most of them lived down in Florida, some moved to the Caribbean. In 2008, we opened the lodge with only 3 brothers twice that year. Brothers just didn't show up. In fact, when we had our elections in December of 2008, only 9 brothers showed up. That's the picture right there. That's every single brother that showed up to our lodge elections in 2008. And if you notice, the 3 past masters are the very unhappy older brothers on the sides, and we had to beg them to come. And you could see they weren't happy. We had 0 appointed Grand Lodge officers in 2008. We had 0 elected Grand Lodge officers. We had 0 emeritus Grand Lodge members, and we had 0 33rd degree, 33rd degree members as well. How we began working on developing our culture was we began with a very simple concept: who best can work and best agree, right? We began by focusing on the ritual. Me and my 2 cable toes were initiated in the Adelphia Union. We were passed in Cornerstone Lodge number 37, and we were raised in Joppa Lodge number 55 because the Brothers of Adelphia Union did not have enough brothers who knew the work or who could do all the pieces to do their degree work for the other 2 degrees. And when you look at what separates us and Masonry from every other organization in the world, it's the ritual. It's not community service, it's not partying, it's not fish fries or anything else, it's the ritual and the performance and the daily practice of it. So we focused on the ritual. We made a promise to ourselves that we will be the last 3 brothers to ever be raised outside of Adelphia Union. That if we had to do all the parts ourselves, we would do it. And we knew that the manner in which you perform ritual is a direct relation to the level of engagement and retention of members. And that when you do excellent ritual, I know in every jurisdiction, it's a sign of the type of commitment and dedication that people have in the lodge today. And so we decided to make it creative. We decided to make it work for our members. We even divided the middle chamber up into 5 different brothers because none of us had the whole thing ourselves. Right? So we began there. And we use organizational techniques because excellent degree work takes both preparation and practice. And one of the things, Brother Thomas Brooks, who was famous in the blue light community, was our worshipful master at the time and our beloved brother who helped put together many of the things that we do now. He developed a degree sheet, which allowed brothers to look very specifically at the different pages they were responsible for as far as what role they would play in the degree, what pages it was in the ritual so they can never get lost, and also what supplies would always be needed. So we would never look lacking as we got our degree work together. We would never, ever have something not filled. We'd never be caught unprepared. So that's where we began, was the ritual. The second thing we did was we truly embraced Masonry. One of the things that we often said in our lodge early on was that Masonry brings together men who otherwise would have stayed at a perpetual distance. So we embraced that. And although it was not popular among some of the older members of the lodge, we made a decision to be diverse, both in our lodge and in our practices. We welcome men of all creeds, of all ages, and all nationalities and religions, including 2 Caucasian members, a brother who was a Wiccan, was his religion, and we elected our first Latino worshipful master in the history of Adelphi Union in the first 5 years. We became diverse and inclusive in all our meetings and events. We started to celebrate Latino Heritage Month, not just Black History Month. We took time to look at all faiths and how they related back to Masonry. We had a divine service for the first time in a mosque, not just a Christian church. Right? The next thing we did was, after being diverse and inviting all to be a part of who we were, we understood the importance of prosecuting Masonic offenses. And I know brothers are going to say, damn, Kev, where are we going with this? Right? But there's a reason that so few men are Masons. And I believe this to my heart. This is a way of a life for a few. And we must guard our principles and beliefs even amongst ourselves. And we learned very quickly from brothers in the craft that if people believe that you apply the rules subjectively, they will believe us hypocrites. They will believe we don't believe in the Masonry that we teach. And we had a clear example. We had a brother who walked away from the lodge for 10 years because he went to a lodge barbecue, and one of the brothers hit on his girlfriend, who would later become his wife. And when he went to the master for redress, they told him, well, he's a good brother. Don't pay attention. It'll be all right. And that brother was upset that the lodge did not take his being offended and his girlfriend, later wife's being offended so much that he left the lodge for 10 years. And we had to convince him to come back. And now I'll tell you who he is at the end, but he became worshipful master, became a deputy district grand master, and now serves as the grand secretary of the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of the state of New York. We have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. Brothers must know that if they're wrong, they can seek and receive justice from the lodge, regardless of rank or title. We must guard the gates, even from ourselves. And in 3 years, we had 3 Masonic trials. And we suspended one brother, and we reprimanded another, and another was found innocent. Now, that's not easy, brothers, and it hurts sometimes. But it has to be done because we have to hold ourselves to a higher calling if we're going to really build the lodge culture that we're trying to build. The next thing we did was we tried to diversify our Masonic revenue streams, right? We fundamentally did believe that nobody wanted to buy any more raffles, right? Nobody wanted to attend any more fish fries, and nobody wanted any more $20 parties. And because we only had a small group of brothers to begin with, we knew a party wasn't going to work anyway because we weren't going to make enough money, right? So we found ways to diversify our events and ability to gain revenue. We began with cigars because that's what some of us liked individually. We found a beautiful rooftop in Harlem and began holding our annual cigar event, which is one of the top mini makers in our jurisdiction. I created the blue I Am Prince Hall wristbands. Those wristbands that became very popular in the early 2000s, early 2010, 12. Those blue bands, I created the first one, and we made thousands of dollars off selling them all across the country and in our own jurisdiction. We made DVDs. We found a brother who from Beacon Light 76, and he would videotape guest lecturers. And we would sell those DVDs of their lectures to other brothers and other lodges. And then also we found that a lot of our brothers were talented. We found that we had 2 chefs in the lodge. We had a designer and a woodworker, and they allowed us to raffle their services. And last but not least, we created unique power and we sold it for a profit. Lapel pins, sweatshirts, hats, etc. And as you can see, a cigar event was effective. The Prince Hall bands were effective. These are one of the brothers who was in woodwork. He made cases for lodges, charters, and ballot boxes, right? And we did a program called University of Spirituality, where even our brother who was a Wiccan got a chance to talk about what it was to be a Wiccan, right? And how that related back to Masonry. And last but not least, we did programs that were inventive. Ask One to Be One, where we brought in brothers who were from the other side and asked them to talk about their journey to Masonry and made them feel at home. And when more brothers attended that program, we ended up with more of those brothers applying to be members of our lodge. Outreach and presentation. Look, let me be very honest. In Adelphi Union Lodge number 14, we made a decision to be very public, which pissed a lot of people off. But in a world where people have 800 channels on their TVs and can access the entire world on their computers and their phones, we felt like we needed to be. We actively used websites, Facebook, we created Instagram, a Twitter, Snapchat, And we exploited all forms of media to promote activities in local papers. We did interviews for every online magazine. And all of that was done not to ask people to join, but to attract the attention of good men who then only needed to ask us, and then we would put them through the rigmarole. Also, we used visitation as a powerful outreach tool and a learning tool. If we learned a better way to do something or a more efficient way to do something or got a better idea from a lodge in Boston or Long Island, we gladly embraced it and adopted as a practice if it works for our lodge and our membership. All good ideas that serve Masonry and fit the you were welcome in our house. And as you can see, we set up a web page. We set up our own individual Facebook page, our Instagram page. We even highlighted opportunities like this. When you brothers invited me to be in the Prince Hall think tank many years ago, we used that as a highlight for our lodge and for the brothers. We also set up different accounts. And here's a local Harlem paper where we do a program called Masonic Meals on Wheels, where we go visit our sick and shut-in brothers and widows of the lodge. And we get together, we cook food, and we go out, split up, and go to their houses and take them food. And we had that covered by one of the local papers in Harlem. Sixth thing that we did was we branded our lodge. Let's be clear, the square and the compass alone cannot communicate the special spirit of any lodge. It's a powerful symbol. It belongs to all of us, but we wanted something different. We started calling ourselves the U because these emblems and symbols and nicknames help communicate the image and the importance that the lodge had created as a complement to the history in our community. We know that an impressive emblem or nickname can add to the value in our presentation. And also it lent itself to camaraderie. When people would say the who and we'd say the you, it brought pride and practice to the brothers of our lodge, right? And yeah, perhaps we went a little overboard because we did baseball jersey and fish hats and hand signs and these are hockey jerseys. And this is my football jersey, and there's Past Master Sanchez and Past Master Elamine. We even did aprons when we cooked. And yeah, some people got driven crazy by it. But think about the brothers. We never ran out. Brothers still ask us for baseball jerseys, football jerseys to this day in our lodge. And when brothers get raised, man, and we even have brothers. My cable toe, because of life, he couldn't be around. But let me tell you something. If he sees a hat or a jacket or a sweater that says the U, and we have not offered him one where he can buy it, I will get a phone call on my cell phone and would say, "What? Y'all don't love me anymore?" And he must have the most Adelphic Union closet in the history of America because he can't come out because of where he lives now. But he has every piece of everything we have ever made. So he must be the Adelphic Union spokesman for his block because it's unbelievable how much stuff he has. We also decided that we wanted to use our 24-inch gauge, right? We know that men love masonry, but they hated the meetings, right? And masonry in today's world must be worthy of a busy man's time. So the lodge has to do some work. We have to be prepared. We have to make it interesting. We have to make it festive and celebrate. And so we came up with a way where we followed the model that every time we meet, whether it's a study class or lodge meeting, 1/3 is dedicated to Masonic life, 1/3 is dedicated to lodge business, and 1/3 is dedicated to fellowship at every meeting because brothers come for different reasons. And you have to feed them while they come, and they will absolutely come back, right? And we changed the way we met. We actually learned that every lodge in my jurisdiction meets at 8 o'clock, right? But we used to find that we would find ourselves, all of us got off either 5 or 6. And we would sit around the temple from 7 to 8, just kind of BSing each other, just talking and hanging out, right? But it didn't make any sense. So we wasted an entire hour. So we changed our bylaws, and the official time became 7 p.m. to open. So we began to open earlier so we could close earlier and get brothers home at a more reasonable hours. We began to try to keep our meetings all to 2 hours and try to keep degrees to 3. We always didn't succeed at that, but that was the goal. We walked in knowing that at the front. Don't waste any time. Right? And we found out when brothers knew we respected their time, they were more apt to come out the next week. One of the things we did that was very controversial was we began making everybody salute the West. Right? If you came in late for our meeting, you saluted the West. Unless you were elected Grand Lodge officer or a special VIP, visitors salute the West. We'll let them address later, but we're not going to keep raising the lodge, stopping the business. You came late, we get it, we respect it, but we can't keep coming off the rails for you. right? We also automated and streamlined our communications. In the state of New York, it is only required that you read Grand Lodge communications. Every other communication that comes from every lodge chapter and everything else, we would scan it in and email it to every brother. Because let's be honest, how many of us have been in a lodge meeting and somebody said, we got Jimmy Crack Corn Lodge 123's fish fries this Friday. Contact Jimmy Jones at 744-321-877. You ever seen anybody write that stuff down? I never did. I never saw a single person run to get the fish fry number that the secretary was reading at the secretary's desk. It used to drive me insane. You can't even contact that person. What was the point of reading that? What was the point of spending 30 minutes reading about fish fries and things like that, and nobody writes any of it down? So we cut out the middleman. If it ain't a Grand Lodge communication, we don't read it. What we do is we email it, and the master will send a separate email that says, I'm going to X, Y, and Z, join me. And then the brothers had a choice, right? We also planned something special for downtimes. In between, when they got the candidates ready, things like that, we would have a Masonic chat topic. We talk about Damien Jack's book, right? We talk about something Antonio Caffey put on the internet. We talk about something Andrew Hamer had put out there. We'd share it and have a quick discussion while the brothers were putting on their getting ready for the degree. So there was never a downtime where we weren't feeding people's soul, spirit, and body. And last but not least, we made sure that every master understood you better have a written agenda and you better stick to it. And you share it with your officers and you share it with your secretary and treasurer in advance. So if something needs to happen, it happens in advance. We're not fighting in the lodge over 13, 14 cents. That conversation is had in advance. So we don't have to go through this. All right. This principle was clearly mine. This was something that I brought in the year that I served as master. Love, not necessarily like. In Adelphi Union, we ask that every brother in this lodge love every brother in this lodge, but not necessarily like them. Like means you want to hang out, you want to grab a drink, or you want to spend some downtime with them. Love means you honestly care about their well-being, their family's well-being. You want to see them do well and be successful, but you may not necessarily want to spend all your personal time with them, right? It's okay to have different levels of friendship in a lodge, but it's not okay to make any man feel left out. And that's a principle that we embraced wholeheartedly. You must love every brother in this lodge. It's okay if you don't like him. It's okay, but you must love him. And how has it worked? Since 2008, our membership has more than tripled. We went from one of the 4 or 5 smallest lodges in my jurisdiction to now one of the top 3 lodges in our jurisdiction. We were $3,700 in the hole to the Grand Lodge. We're now paid in advance. Interest in our lodge has never been higher. We were honored at Grand Lodge session a few years ago with the Lodge of the Year distinction. Our culture is strong and it's growing. We average 25 or more brothers in attendance at every stated meeting and 12 to 17 brothers at every study class. I'd like to get those numbers higher, but we're working on it. And our bank account has more money in it than it has in 20 years. We also have the distinction of having 4 elected Grand Lodge officers from Adelphi Union, the Grand Treasurer, the Grand Secretary, and 2 Grand Trustees. We have 5 appointed Grand Lodge officers, 1 emeritus Grand Lodge officer, and we currently have 3 33-degree Masons, starting with myself in 2015. Sandino and Daquan Elamine followed a few years later, and 1 more who got his nomination and will receive it this May, our Junior Past Master Raul Rodriguez. So we did it, but it's not done, and we have to keep building it. It doesn't stop with just having a set of principles and applying them. You have to keep applying them. You have to keep revising them to make sure that they work for you. You have to keep visiting and making sure that best practices that you learn, you see that things that might work for your lodge, you got to keep doing it. You got to keep producing the new t-shirt, the new sweatshirt, right? You got to get Grandmasters to throw up the U from time to time. And I got Grandmaster Walter C. King doing it too. But I got to put that picture in. You got to continue. When we visit 11, 12, 13, 14 strong, right? We got to continue. It doesn't just stop with these principles. You got to keep reliving them. You got to keep practicing them. You got to keep living with them. And I'd say thank you, brothers, for allowing me to discuss this topic. And I'd love to go through it further. And this is my passion. For those that who may not know much about me, I also have a degree in I have a master's degree in organizational management and leadership from City College. And so this is the type of thing that is special to me. If you've ever read any of the things I've written on Phylaxis or in the Sentinel, I write about advice for leadership, spiritual masters, why certain things matter, as well as history. Those are my two things. And I believe that every lodge can apply every lodge can apply a set of principles. Not just these may not work for you, right? Some may not. But there are principles that can work for every one of us that we can learn from, not only us, but other lodges that are working in our area and help change the culture. And one of the things that I think brothers need to understand too, it doesn't take a lot of people. There was only 3 of us at the beginning, right? 3 of us and 2 past masters. That was it. 5 people in total. And it took a while. It took a while. It took a lot of hard work. But what we started with was very small things. The first thing we said was, I'm going to show up to study class every Friday from now on. So me and my cable toe, Gene Anthony Edwards, we showed up to every study class for the next 5 years, right? That was where we started, right? Every study class will be there. If nobody else comes, we'll be there, right? And as brothers started to see our commitment to it, they started coming, right? Brothers started coming back. And we lost a couple of past masters that we love very much. Who were not fans of the changes. They didn't like hand signs. They thought we were doing gang signs, and they didn't like the fact that we were loud and boisterous. But we gained some of our older past masters back. And as we began to build, we always respected those who came before us. Just because they ruled over the lodge and the lodge was small or didn't have much money or anything like that, we never made them feel small. In fact, they were some of our biggest supporters over time because we respected their service. We told them Adelphia Union doesn't exist if you didn't do what you did in 1988. If you didn't do what you did in 1989, there is no Adelphia Union. We love you. Come back. Yeah, we're doing things a little different. And we need you to put on this U hat and this U sweater and this U sweatshirt. But if you look at pictures of us over the years, you'll see that's exactly what happened. Our older past masters started putting on baseball jerseys and football jerseys and hockey jerseys and sweatshirts and lapel pins. And in all those pictures I showed you, there was an older gentleman over 75 throwing up the U. That was unique for us and something that we found really worked. And so as a consequence, it took a while. It didn't happen overnight, but in the span of 5 years, we went from smallest to one of the biggest. And it was by embracing those 7 or 8 principles and applying them and using them. And I hope that somebody got something out of that.
Thank you, good brother. I mean, I think one of the most powerfulest things that you did and how you illustrated that started in the beginning when you showed that photo, because I'm going to be honest with you. When I came across you starting at, blue light, you brought that up, blue light. I was, hearing a lot about it. We started emailing each other.
Yes, sir.
Start emailing a lot of the good brothers in the. I thought that it had always been like that, like since the beginning of the lodge to where you all are at now. So to hear you started there and to see where it started, and then the meticulous plans that you put in place to get it to where it's at now, it's fascinating. And I think it's very, very helpful from this standpoint, where a lot of folks, when we're having these type of conversations with lodges, because we've all heard the stories, and people say, well, my lodge isn't doing too well, and well, we can't do that because we don't have enough people, or we're not, we don't have enough, just it's something. And what you showed was you basically said, whatever the reasons that you may have not to do it, if you just get rid of those reasons and just do it, you don't have to have a lot of people. You just have to have a lot of commitment.
Yes, sir.
With the people that you do have and moving forward. So that was a great presentation in regards to how you broke it down and just showing the growth and the things, like I said, the plans that you brothers put into place, because again, let's be real, culture is very, very important when it comes to our lodges. If people don't feel, just a natural human reaction, if people don't feel like that they're getting something out of the experience, of being a Freemason, being in any organization. And that's why I framed it when I posted it earlier on my page, on my site, where I said, yeah, tonight we're specifically talking about a Masonic lodge, but if you're in any type of fraternal organization, you're going to be able to get something out of this, because culture is very, very key to any of those organizations. And if you don't have it, and if you don't take care of it and really be, strong with it, you're not going to have a lot of people coming out. So it's definitely important. Now, other brothers' thoughts?
Well, first of all, I would say this. For me, a lot of what our good brother discussed was very personal for me. I don't remember when I started, but y'all may have noticed over the past few episodes, I wear a past master necklace, just about every day. And the reason why I bring that up is because once I learned about Adelphi Union and the model and things that they were doing, I tried to implement a lot of that in my own lodge in Corinthian 18. Ironically, as Brother Wardali knows, I've never been to an Adelphi Union meeting because our lodges both meet on the same night. So I've never had the opportunity, but just from talking to the good brothers there and fellowship with them and whatnot. Even recently, somewhat recently, we were hanging out when the brothers came down to Maryland and whatnot. I definitely took note, because I think that we have to, as an organization, we have to always look at best practices, right? So it's kind of funny because I didn't know about the fact that y'all had changed the time of when your meetings open, because I did the same thing in Corinthian. We actually opened the same time. And so, but implementing those type of changes, I think is really important. And there is no one size fits all. I think you have to look at your lodge's exact situation. But for me, I look at results. I'm hearing you talk about your funding. We all got money problems. I'm hearing you talking about membership. We all have membership problems. But then to see a lodge thrive and to be friends with brothers in that lodge and to see how you all have grown over the years, I'm very proud. Now, I do have a question. I actually have two questions for you. Is that all right, Brother Caffey?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. Yep. So my first question for you, Brother Wardali, is how much would you say geography, in terms of you all being a lodge in New York, let's say, like if I'm in a lodge, I literally the other day I had a worshipful master contact me, who's a fan of the show, who he's out in Iowa somewhere, and he's like, hey man, look, I'm trying to get my lodge in gear. A Prince Hall Lodge in Iowa, just a Masonic Lodge in Iowa and a Masonic Lodge in New York. There are going to be some similarities. There are going to be some differences. So how much would you say geography has impacted your lodge's approach to lodge culture? That's my first question. And then my second question is, how have you all been able to infect, I guess is the right word, how have you all been able to affect the other appendant bodies, as you all go out and join the Royal Arch chapters in your district and the consistory and the shrine? Have you all been able to kind of take that culture with you all into those other organizations, and how has that worked out?
Well, geography, I think, like you said, a lodge in Iowa is going to be different than a lodge in New York. And the good part was, because it's a crushed metropolitan, it allows us to kind of be a little bit closer. But it's actually been something of a difference. Like my worshipful master currently lives out on Long Island, right? And we have many brothers who live upstate, who live, above Westchester County, Rockland and Duckwiches, and they travel to the lodge. And although some of them, we've tried to help them find lodges closer to where they live, because they love the culture they found here, they don't want to leave. We actually have two brothers in Georgia, three brothers in Georgia, who still are on the rolls of Adelphi Union. They pay their dues every year, and they occasionally come to meet. One was just flew back for the election this past December. They don't want to change their affiliation, because even though they visit lodges in Georgia, they have not found the same oomph just yet. And we only have one brother who actually demitted, who was in Chicago, and he kept his membership for 10 years and just demitted because he wanted to serve as worshipful master of that lodge, and he had to be a member of that lodge. So geography has played a role, but not as much as you would think. And then As far as the other houses, I'll be honest and say that what has happened is we have flooded other houses, meaning we had 15 of us join the Red House, the same Red House, right? And so we brought a lot of the things that we did in the Delphi Union to that Red House, which caused a lot of controversy. But the Red House was moving easier, right? And so we took over the high priest seat, this, that, and this and that, and now we have 2 past high priests. Same thing with the consistory. Now we have 2 past commanders in chief, and we're about to bring a Knights Templar commandery back to the Grand East, hopefully in the next year, within less than the next year. And so what we do is we use the principles that work for us in the U, and we apply them in these other houses and try to get those places to begin building along those cultures. Now the problem is you can't lock it in, right? Because it's not like we're going to keep being the head of it, right? So when we come out and somebody else goes in, you try to do your best to influence it the same way. Some with more success, some with less success. The problem being is that other brothers aren't as committed to these other houses as they are to the U. They get in, they do it for a little while, then so far we found some ebb and flow. But we do have short-term success, and we're trying to help change those cultures there as well.
Thank you for that. Just to clarify, when you say you bring a commandery back, are you saying that was a commandery that had lost its charter or something like that, or are you saying that it's just moving it back
There were 2 commanderies that worked out of our Grand East. One, which the one I belong to, moved up to Westchester County, which isn't too far, but they also changed the date of their meeting to a Saturday. And there was another one right in the Grand East that had just turned in its chart over time. And so now we do not have a commandery at our Grand East right now. And so we're working with the eminent Grand Commander now to bring that commandery back, because now we have 11 members of the Delphi Union who are the Knights Templars, plus some other brothers in the First District who a Saturday morning meeting doesn't work. Brothers who have kids like me and others, I know Kathy knows this. Saturday morning, when they changed to Saturday morning, that meant me and Sandino couldn't go to the meeting, right? Because Saturday mornings, my wife is like, you take these kids and you take them to class and you take them to football, you take them to baseball, you do whatever. You did all that masonry stuff all week. I didn't want to hear it. Saturday, you take those kids and you take them to their stuff, right? So going to I couldn't even have that conversation with my wife or anybody about a Knights Templar meeting on Saturday. That just wasn't happening. So I couldn't stay active. I paid my dues, and I do the fundraisers and stuff, but I couldn't stay active. So we're bringing one back here to the First District, hopefully in the next year, within the next year with this eminent Grand Commander.
Right, worshipful Wardali. There's so many places that I want to go with this. With this being an outstanding presentation that you put together this evening. Not to go too deep to it, but it's amazing how we're talking about the culture of a lodge. And I'll just say this for those who understand: it's amazing how you use the knowledge of what you had to help build the culture, and now everyone sees the power in what you have done. Those who know will understand what I meant by what I just said. But this is also a prime example of those who see your glory but don't know your story. Because I know for me, the first time that I ever heard about the U was through Past Master Errol Allen when he, came down to Charlotte. He visited, my lodge when I was worshipful master, and I still have the pen that he gave me as a gift. And I remember, coming up to the U and being honored to present a lecture, and just seeing the camaraderie and the culture that that you talked about, and it was really a beautiful thing. My question to you, now that this culture has been built, and now that those who have seen the glory part of what you have done to rebuild your chapter and to rebuild your lodge and build a culture. They say that imitation is the art of flattery. So have you seen now those who, pretty much try to, imitate or won't necessarily say imitate, but now have taken some of the things that you had that the U has done to help build their their lodge culture? Do you see some similarities when you go out and visit other lodges and you say, yeah, that came from the U. We did that. Do you see
Well,
some things like that now?
I tell you, first of all, I always say to brothers in my jurisdiction and without, we are always willing to help, right? I tell brothers, if there's anything that I have, whether it's the history of your lodge, study guide, curriculum, the history of my lodge and things that we did, anything that we have, we will share with you. Because there is no point for Delphi Union to be successful and not everybody else be successful. Because in the end, that first of all, that's unbrotherly to me. But second, we want you to be successful, right? Because all of masonry is successful if you're successful, right? So we give away our model. We don't hoard it. We don't close it off. We offer it to anybody. Any piece of what we do, we give. And I think many brothers in my jurisdiction will admit to that to you. They'll tell you that when they ask me for a study guide curriculum, I send it. They ask me for this other thing, I send it. I have no hesitation to share my information with brothers because I want us all to succeed. And I'll be honest, we have seen a half dozen to a dozen lodges in our jurisdiction take pieces of it and be very successful. And we've seen some younger lodges push the envelope the way we do. And we love it. We love it. We every chance we get to support them, we do it. We've seen some lodges get in trouble like we had a thing in the Delphi Union for the first couple of years where we said if you were the master of a Delphi Union and you weren't called to the Grand Master's office, you weren't a real past master of the Delphi Union. Because we would get in trouble so often, right? That the Grand Master we had like our own seat outside the Grand Master's office where, well, it's time to call in Delphi Union. Here they go again. Like, Jack, you remember when you came, remember we had the Grand Lodge of Scotland come.
Oh, I'll never forget it.
So I'll tell a little short history. So the Grand Lodge of New York and the Grand Lodge of Scotland had beef. And they had like withdrawing recognition and they were fighting, right? And so the Grand Lodge of Scotland, this whole group of like 25 Scottish brothers were coming to the Grand Lodge of New York to do their first degree the way they do in Scotland at the Grand Lodge of New York. They had a planned trip. They were coming all over the country. They found themselves in New York, unwelcome in the Grand Lodge of New York, right? But an honorary member of our lodge, Brother Andrew Hamer, is friends with those brothers. And he called me. And he said, bro, I know this is going to cause a lot of controversy, but would a Delphi Union host the Grand Lodge of Scotland during their meeting? I said, host? We'll throw them a banquet and we'll do a festive board. Bring them. And we sure did. And for the first time in the history of Prince Hall in New York, the Grand Lodge of Scotland did their first degree in our lodge. And let me tell you.
Powerful.
It was powerful. And let me tell you, those Scottish brothers, they still reach out to us on Facebook and stuff all the time. Right, and the pictures were hilarious, right? All these brothers with kilts on, with Damian Jack and me and Daquan, but they loved it. They had never been in a Prince Hall Lodge before. Some of them had never been around that many brothers before, right? And let me tell you, the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of New York, when I say he lit my Grand Master on fire, bro. The next morning, my phone was on fire. The Grand Master was like, I don't know what you did. But your officers need to be in my office. I need to understand what's going on here. And we were like, but we saw other lodges after that invite the Grand Lodge of Lebanon, the Grand Lodge of this to come to their meetings. And you see a couple of brothers here and there at their meetings. And that's the kind of stuff that we want to do. As long as they're regular lodges and we have visitation and recognition, they should be welcome. And more importantly, we can learn from them and they can learn from us. Right, and that unique perspective has value. But yeah, we get in trouble sometimes, and now other lodges get in trouble sometimes too, and that's good. And what I always tell brothers is, what we did in a Delphi Union is not special. It's just masonry. It's just masonry. All we did was decide to apply masonry. We're not any better or worse than anybody. We're not special. We're not superheroes, right? This isn't Marvel. What we are is we just applied masonry and stuck to it. And when it was just a few of us, then it was just a few of us. In fact, And Jack, you'll know this because I think I told you this story. The whole thing about the U, right, comes from a joke. And how we got to the U comes from a joke. Okay? It was 2009, and we were at a big party that Beacon Light had thrown. And Beacon Light, for those of you who know New York, they used to throw these fantastic parties, right? And now you brothers all know at parties, they'll go around at a point in the party and they'll be like, oh, boy in large number one, hey, this one, that one, hey, St. John's Lodge, hey, right? Paul Drayton, hey, right? And my cable told Gene Edwards screams in the middle of the party, yo, what about the U? Why nobody mentioned the U? Right? Because it was only three of us there, and me and him were new, and Brooks, who never went to parties, right? We were the only three people there. Right? So the guy on the microphone was a past master. And he goes, the who? And Gene jumps out in the middle of the party in front of the lodge and goes, the goddamn U! In front of the whole room.
That's classic, right?
What we did, people were like, are y'all crazy? There's three of y'all. Nobody cares. And we were just like, no, you can't, if you're going to recognize lodges, you got to recognize the U. And they were just like, the who? Who are you guys? Like, get out of here. And what we did was we made it a shirt. We have a shirt that says the who, the you. And that became our call from that point forward to just shock the world. And it literally was Gene Edwards at a party, packed party, and it was just three of us, and they wouldn't mention our name. When they mentioned all the lodges to identify, nobody would mention us. It was 2009, and nobody cared who we were except for us.
You shook up the world. Well, you know what? Let me ask her. Go ahead, James. One more question. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that reminds me of like one of those old skits, like one like the old DMX album, where like when the guy was like yeah I'm with the Rough Riders.
Yeah.
Like, you can't even say Rough
Riders. Gene was on his mad. He was on his mad rapper. That's what it was. But let me ask you a question. When you talk about the culture, also, you had said, earlier, as you were building this culture, you said basically if you didn't get in trouble in some form or fashion, you wasn't a past master, right? So, and of course, in building that culture, like you said, you're gonna have your highs, your lows. You're gonna have your bumps in the road. The one thing that I have noticed about the U ever since basically I've been paying attention to the U is that you're not afraid to stand for what you believe in, even if that means standing alone. The example that I use for that is when you got together and everybody was doing the hands up, don't shoot, and the lies got together and they have they got together and they had their hands up, which I thought was powerful for you as a culture, as you continue to build that culture. How was one of the ways that you come up with not only saying this is something we're coming to the decision where this is what we're going to stand for, and as you're standing for it and standing on it, how do you deal with the bumps and blows of the controversy in between that?
Man, I remember that. That was when Trayvon got killed. Man, it was we had some powerful discussions and study classes, and we made that decision to put on our aprons and gloves and take that picture and put it up across the internet, man. And let me tell you, we got like a couple thousand likes on that picture. I mean, and let me tell you, we got some real trouble for that one, boy. Woo! Some brothers, some of the older brothers said we were making political statements and all kinds of stuff. What it was we saw, and because we were becoming a younger lodge, we could see the pain in these young brothers' faces, right? And we wondered, and you saw everybody else out there marching, and they felt like, why isn't Prince Hall at the front of this? Like, why isn't the Grand Master marching across the Brooklyn Bridge, right? And we had to explain to them that hasn't always been our way. We've always been supportive of every effort, right? But we have not always been in front. And I talked about how my own grandfather, who was raised in the Delta Union in the 1940s, never wore anything that said he was a Mason except for a small lapel pin, right? That was his way, right? But he wrote checks when Percy Sutton, when the first black man ran for mayor of the city of New York, right? He was my dad. They didn't have any money, but that's where that's where they put their money, right? When NAACP, when the street academies, right? They put their money where their mouth is. They didn't always necessarily jump in front. And I had to explain to some of the younger brothers that as an older institution, sometimes you're not going to see that type of direct action the way you might like. But let's do it ourselves. Let's send a message ourselves. And then if we want to go to the rally, we go to the rally, right? If we want to march across the bridge, let's do that together, right? We can't demand it of them. Let's do it ourselves, and hopefully we'll inspire them, right? And that's kind of how we did with it. And look, it does get hard sometimes. And what we do is we just tell ourselves we have strong faith in what we're doing is right, and we try not to break any too many rules and regulations that are unwritten or edicts of those sorts. And we've been very good at arguing our point. And then also, as we've gotten more brothers involved in Grand Lodge activities and more brothers elected to the Grand Lodge and more brothers participating, it allowed us to build up some goodwill where there wasn't, when we were just outsiders looking in, right? It was very easy to say, they're not following the rules of that. But now you got the Grand Secretary, you got the Grand Treasurer, you got Grand Trustees, you got 33rd degree Masons who are also saying, look, let's think about this differently. Let's look at this differently, right? But I'm the chair of your banquet committee. I'm the chair of your banquet committee. So you can't, don't kill the messenger. Work with me. So we embrace the outsider and insider strategy that allowed us to still be who we are, but also, we're definitely inside the house too. So that way we could buy some goodwill over time so that we don't get in as much trouble as we once did. But every master gets called to the table. There's no doubt about it. But we're doing inside outsider strategy. We can't help it.
Brother Ward, can you speak to the Friday study classes that you all have? Like, what role does that particular event play in just the overall, like, infusing the culture of the lodge and your members?
Well, in New York, every lodge has a study class one night a week, or at least they try to. Some lodges are not strong enough to do that anymore, but that's the history. And my lodge has had a study class on Friday night in the basement of the Grand East since the 1950s. And let's be honest, for a younger lodge, a Friday night study class has been a challenge, right? Because when it's older men and you just go to the bar and hang out too, like you do a study class, you go to the bar and you hang out, which is right next to where the study class is, it was no problem. But as you get younger brothers, they don't want to come to the old Grand East every Friday night. So what we do is we tell brothers, look, come to study class at least 2 or 4 times every month, right? At least, right? Try to make them all. And we promise that we'll start at 7 and we'll end before 9, right? And in the span of those hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours, we're going to do some light. We're going to do some study. We're going to discuss some large business and what our plans are moving forward. And then maybe we'll have some pizza, or we'll order some wings from the bar or whatever. And then when it's over, go out and go with your girlfriend or go wherever you want to go, or hang out, stay and hang out and help build some more culture, right? Come and, have a drink with us, right? Let's talk about some more stuff. But if you just give us from 7 to 9, you can still go do all that other stuff. So that's really how we emphasize it. We told the brothers, we won't waste their time. It'll just be this window. We won't drag it out. We won't belabor the point, and we'll do large fellowship, light, and business, and get them out. But we do it every Friday, so brothers know exactly where to find us, right? And especially once we have candidates, it's a huge, candidates are, you have a lot to teach them to get them ready. And so we use that. We use candidates as a way to also reinstitute the principles in ourselves, right? Every time we have a new class of brothers, it allows us to go over our principles again. It allows us, as we're teaching them, we're teaching ourselves. So we use that class as part of that process. right? Because we all know there's things that we remember, don't remember as well as we should. But when we're teaching it to somebody else, well, they used to call it the table and the fork, the knife and fork degree, right? You get to polish up your skills while you're teaching someone else, and also help your damn self. And that's what we use those Friday night study classes for. And we also use them for presentations as well.
So, Brother Wardali, one thing that I'm hearing from you is about taking responsibility of your lodge's destiny in a way. One thing that I've kind of noticed in my Masonic travels is I get the feeling that a lot of our Grand Lodges have a culture of uniformity, of want everybody to do things the exact same way and dress alike and do things and whatnot. And you know, and I think that's a problem. I think that when we're all doing things the same way, it's like we all end up going down the same paths, unfortunately. And so I commend the Delphic Union 14 for your for your commitment to owning your lodge's destiny, for being willing to take risks, to make some changes and whatnot. And I think that, as Brother Jack said earlier, I think the most sincere compliment you can receive is not just flattery but also imitation. And so the fact that you all are slowly but surely rubbing off on some people and saying, "Hey, look, these are some things you need to be thinking about. So these things you need to consider." It sounds revolutionary, like you said, but in reality, all you're really doing is talking about practicing Freemasonry, as Brother Caffey always likes to tell us at the end of the show. He always says, "Let's teach Masonry in our lodges." But we also need to get back to practicing Masonry as far as having our communications. I don't like Masonic meetings either, but I'll go to a Masonic communication all day, right? I think that's a really, really important distinction that you all are making of what did we come here to do, right? Go back to those basics and then move forward. And even to your point about the political activism piece, I mean, yeah, you're right. That may not always be the way per se. However, we know in our history, matter of fact, your jurisdiction, I'm sure you know this already, but for those who don't, your jurisdiction actually had signs and was there at the March on Washington. I don't know how many others were there.
Pastor and Master John Johnston from my jurisdiction chartered a train. He chartered a train to take Prince Hall Masons from New York down to the March on Washington.
Right.
I use that very picture. I use that very picture for my presentation for our social activism in our social activism episode. Yeah.
Right.
One of the earliest meetings about the March on Washington includes A. Philip Randolph in the basement of our temple with several Joppa 55 of his lodge brothers with maps of Washington. They're in the bar where we used to hang out every Friday, sitting there around the table, one of the earliest meetings. Right? I always tell brothers, look, we were part of all this stuff in real ways. I mean, when you look at Sugar Ray Robinson, one of the first job fairs Sugar Ray Robinson held in Harlem was at the Prince Hall Grand Lodge in New York. Right? The first brothers he put to work were Masons or their friends and family. Right? The Harlem Street Academies, run by put in place by put in place by Adam Clayton Powell, put in place by God, what's that brother's name? Who was executive director of the Street Academies? I mean, the first meetings were at our temple, right? First meetings. Percy Sutton, a member of one of our lodges, was one of the biggest supporters of that. I mean, oh man, I'm gonna slap myself over this brother's name, this reverend's name. Oh boy, he was executive director of the Street Academy program in Harlem for those years. The Hire You Act programs that brought money directly, created Harlem Prep when 99% of the young men went to college. All poverty and stricken, all troubled kids, quote unquote, mentored by Prince Hall Masons, program created by Prince Hall Masons, run by some Prince Hall Masons, right there on 126th Street and 7th Avenue, but started at our Grand East.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's just like one of the legends of Freemasonry. Brother James R. Morgan once said, he said, sometimes we lose Freemasonry getting caught up in the busyness of Masonry, and I think a lot of times we tend to lose ourselves, and that we get so caught up in the busyness of Masonry that we forget about the actual practice of Freemasonry. And so I think it's a beautiful thing to see when you actually see um, that practice actually in motion, and what we're doing to help move Freemasonry forward. And it's a funny thing that you talk about uniformity, Brother Morgan, because I think that was actually the last presentation that I did for the jurisdiction of Arkansas. We talked about the difference between unity and uniformity, and how we tend to believe that unity and uniformity are synonymous with each other when they're not. And when we talk about unity and not uniformity. So, Brother Wardally, when you're ready for me to bring that to the U, let me know.
Hey, bro, we're ready right now. I'm talking about worship master. Let's put that on the agenda. When you
Absolutely,
come on up.
absolutely.
For Brother Jack, just so I don't get in trouble. I think you merged something I might have said with something that Brother Eric Conahia might have said, but that's all good. I just want to make sure I give him a shout out. You're not getting me in trouble with my deputy, not today, sir.
Well, I heard it from you, so.
Well, see, now you know I'm quoting from the people. But shout out to Brother Conahia. But yeah, Brother Caff, you ready to roll into these real questions?
Yes, sir. Let's take some questions.
Okay, yes, absolutely. So just real quick, we want to give a shout out to everybody who's here checking in with us. We got good old past master John Robinson of Fidelity Lodge number 97 in New York. Thank you so much, past master Robinson. I'm not sure who this is, who the brother or sister is, but it's E-Read Sports TV says, "Greetings, right worshiper. When your lodge meets for study sessions, what do you cover? Is it for Master Masons only, or do entered apprentices and fellow crafts also attend?" I guess is the what they want to know. How do you all handle I guess the question would be, how do you all handle candidate instruction versus
we have a curriculum for the 3 degrees, and then we have a Master Mason curriculum, right? So when we have entered apprentices, we focus on the entered apprentices. We focus on those degrees. We focus on those symbols. We focus on that glossary of terms. We focus on what those lectures mean. We focus on those things, right? Because we think when you're an entered apprentice Mason, you're entitled to everything that entered apprentices can know, right? So we teach it. We focus on it. So when we have EAs, we focus on the EA degree for 4 to 6 weeks, depending upon how well they get in the material, right? If sometimes you get a class, then they're ready before you're ready, right? So while we're getting them ready, we're also practicing for the fellow craft degree after we've done the initiation. Then when we have fellow crafts, we focus on the 2nd degree. You got the middle chamber, you got those 2 charges, you got the dressed up brother. We focus on what those symbols mean, what those stories mean, what those working tools are. So for each degree, we focus on those degrees. And then when they get raised, I have a lecture I do called "I'm a Master Mason, so now what?" Right? And so what I do is I lay out because when they enter apprentice and fellow craft, you have a lot of control over brothers in study class, right? Because if they don't learn what you want them to learn, they can't get the next part. When they become Master Masons, now you can't really dictate to them. So what we try to do is we try to interest them from the very beginning. We say, all right, now you're a Master Mason. You can travel. Look, these are the places you travel to, right? You can get paraphernalia. This is where you get paraphernalia from. These are the 6 hidden signs that were used in Masonry in ages past, right? We try to get them hungry for information right away. And so we hook them, and then we teach those classes. These are what the landmarks are, right? Let's go through our Grand Lodge Constitution. Let's go through our bylaws, right? Let's go through a protocol manual for why do we wear unbroken black, right? Why don't we wear bow ties at funerals? Why, we give them a brand new Master Mason education. So depending upon what we're doing as a lodge, that affects the curriculum that we're using at the time. So when it's entered apprentices, we focus on that. When it's fellow crafts, we focus on that. When it's Master Masons, we focus on what it means to be a Master Mason. And we go through all those degrees, lectures, addresses, etc. And then also when it's Master Mason, we can do a lot of other stuff. You can do community service, right? You can do things we've learned that we've seen in other lodges. You can do best practices, things we didn't do well ourselves, how we're going to do that better moving forward, right? My master now wants to focus on men's health, right? So he's got a plan. Somebody come and talk to us about prostate and prostate checks and colonoscopies and all that kind of stuff, because we as men neglect that stuff. So when we're Master Masons, we're dealing with their spiritual health, their mental health, and their physical health. And until we get new AEAs, and then we'll start for the EA degree and start talking about those working tools and work from there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And I think that all of that is important. And I would suggest everyone go back and check some of our planning for the East and what it's like to be Worship Master episodes, because you definitely need to be thinking about all of those different dynamics as you're becoming the head of these different organizations. So definitely thank you for sharing that piece. Let's see, we have Michael Houston is asking. I think he's referring back to when you mentioned the Grand Lodge of Scotland, which I love that topic. He wants to know, how do you verify visitation and recognition from other countries?
Everybody's got a CCFC. Everybody's got a CCFC. And if you develop a good relationship with your CCFC and your Grand Secretary, you'll know right away. Your Grand Secretary is the one who'll be dealing with those letters that come from these foreign jurisdictions, taking them to Grand Session, working with the Grand Master to get those signed off on. So the combination of those two, your CCFC and your Grand Secretary, will always verify.
Absolutely. And one thing that I would say as well on that is, I think that sometimes because of our history and with Prince Hall Freemasonry, we've been segregated off for so long that now that we're not anymore, sometimes we don't recognize that part. So I appreciated what you were saying about when y'all had the Grand Lodge of Scotland to come and do your work, to do their work in your house. We had the pleasure in DC of having the District Grand Lodge from Bermuda, if I'm not mistaken, that came a few years ago and did some work at our Grand Lodge. But that was something that the Grand Master at the time wanted to do. But I definitely want to give a shout out to those brothers as well. Let's see here. We had something from. Oh, we got a testimony here from our good friend Errol Allen. He said, was also a blessing, and that brothers that came for social activities would come to classes and were always welcome. So we got a testimony. We got a testimonial right there for you.
That's one of the things too. That's one of the things we always focus on. One of the things it says in our installation of officers in December is a part where it says, like, always embrace the wanderer and try to bring him back. And we do that. We try to do that a lot in Delta Union, and we need to get better at it. But when we have a brother who hasn't been out for a long time, we reach out to him. We make a conscious effort to say, bro, just come. And when they start to hesitate, I haven't been out in a while, I don't know if I'm going to remember. Bro, we don't care. We just love you and want you to come out. We're not testing you, right? You're already a Master Mason, right? You don't have to show proficiency to come. Just come. And we've been very successful with that. We need to do it more. But when we get brothers to come out and they get embraced like they never left, it's a powerful thing. It's a powerful thing. We never alienate brothers just because we don't know why they didn't come. They could have had a sick mother, a sick child. They could have had problems at their job. They could have had some mental health issues. We don't know. And it's not our job to judge them, but it's our job to love them. When they come back, embrace them. Tell them that they're always welcome here. And then they'll open up. And once you get them back and they know that they're still loved, 9 times out of 10, that brother's coming back. We have a couple of brothers who hadn't been out in years, who now come all the time. And they're still, look, these brothers are not doing lectures, right? They're not writing history like Brother Caffrey. They're not writing books like Brother, but they're good brothers. They're good men. They love the craft. They love the institution. And we make sure they know that we let them know that they're loved too. Right. Their presence matters. And we make sure they know that.
Right. And bro, you just said something very, very powerful. Don't alienate brothers. And I think that's something that a lot of us take for granted as well. Like if you're in, again, the lodge, any other organization, whatever, if you're in an organization and you find yourself alienating your members, you really need to take a look at your leadership, the culture of the lodge and everything around it, because that's the opposite of what the lodge is supposed to do. And that should be the biggest red flag, stop sign, or what have you. I think sometimes we tend to put it on that brother we're like, okay, we're okay. It's something that they did or something. And no, it's the lodge. And again, we need to take that step back, examine what exactly are we doing, or what are we not doing, where we're making this brother feel like he's not a part of the craft. So thank you for pointing that out.
It's amazing how you can be in an organization full of people and still feel by yourself.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I've seen that and experienced it myself, and I think that one of the things that is an important kind of recurring theme I'm seeing, because the Delphic Union reminds me of another lodge in Maryland, Shelton D. Redden 139, which that lodge I know years ago was going through some issues, and they kind of were able to bring themselves back from the brink, if you will. And I asked one of the past masters there what was the secret, and he told me, he said, "Man, we got a couple brothers together." And we realized was his exact words were to me were he said it begins with brotherhood. And if you don't have that brotherhood, if you don't have that love, and Kev, like you said, you got to love everybody in this lodge. That doesn't mean you like them.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean you're always going to agree. But you gotta love. It begins with that, with having that love, that brotherly, that sisterly love for each other and for the institution as well. That is supposed to, allow for friendship to be ameliorated in some way, shape, or form. But if we're not able to love each other, and trust me, I get look the brothers here. Behind the scenes, we've had some arguments here on the think tank. Not in front of y'all, but amongst each other. I love each one of these brothers here, and I love each one of the brothers who was formerly on our show. We love all of our guests and all of you all here. Doesn't mean we always agree. We all know good and darn well the Knicks ain't gonna win nothing this year.
Nothing.
I love New York
At all.
We know this.
But we love New York.
But I think in understanding that though, it's one of them things where I think brotherly love and even sisterly love, brotherly and sisterly love is a phrase that is thrown out a lot. We throw that phrase around, so many times, but if you were actually to sit somebody down and ask them, what does brotherly love actually mean? If you sit there, if you actually take a look at what the definition is, and we're not going, that's my homework for the brothers here, because hopefully you know where to find it. Take the time to know, what brotherly love actually means. And when you talk about that, one of the things, like Brother Morgan said, we may not always agree, but the thing about, just like the four of us, we understand each other. And that's where where it comes back to, where it comes back to that love, because you're not going to always agree with somebody that you love, but you understand them enough to know the place that where they're coming from. Just like it says in the Bible, and all that get understanding. If you understand that, if you get to understand somebody, then that you're not going to always agree with them, but that they come from a good place. And that's what love is about, knowing that you can you understand me. I think everybody in this world, even me, I'm at the point, and I've even said I'm past the point of wanting to be known. I want to be understood. And if you get to the point where you understand people, then we would be in a much better place, and we would get to that point of brotherly love. I think a lot of times we don't love something that we don't understand. So when you talk about loving somebody, and not necessarily like them, but loving that person, bringing that person in, and not alienating them. If you want to, we always talk about how we're supposed to meet. You can't meet somebody at a place that you don't understand them. So if you truly want to get to that point of brotherly love, and we all get to that same place, and we can all get to that place where we're one person, we got to get to that point of understanding.
Absolutely.
Well, let's go to our thanks for the great conversations. Thanks for the both the conversations that we're having here and conversations that's going on in our chat right now. And thanks for the great questions as well. So let's move to our closing comments for this evening. We'll start with our guest, Brother Wadali.
Well,
Closing comments.
I want to say thank you to you brothers and what I consider close brothers and friends on the Prince Hall Think Tank for inviting me out. This is a topic that I love talking about, and I absolutely think that brothers can get something from. When I was master in my lodge in 2011, my motto was "Let the world see how Masons love one another." And I want brothers to just understand it's not easy. It's not supposed to be. Just like that's why 1% of the people who could be Masons are Masons. This is not for everybody, and that's okay, right? So you gotta put in your work here, and we forget sometimes that in this institution we raise brothers, right? When you raise something, you're responsible for it, right? If we are only brothers when it's easy, if we are only brothers when it's convenient, if we are only brothers when there isn't a brother being thrown out by his girlfriend or bail to pay or a mistake being made or unemployment or substance abuse, if we are only brothers then we are brothers, right? And for this to have real meaning in our spirit, in our mind, in our hearts, and I know that it does for me, and I know that it does for many of you and all the brothers on this think tank. We raise these brothers, so we're responsible for them. So yeah, we all got those of us who have multiple kids may like one more than the other, but we love them all. And so we have to put in that work. We have to find those best practices, and we can rebuild these lodges. We can help these men be better, and I know that we can do it. Not because only I've seen it work in my life, but I know it to be true. And I want to thank you for inviting me, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks,
The doors
good
of the
brother.
church are now open.
Definitely. Brother Morgan.
Well, again, I want to thank our good friend, good brother. I consider one of my Masonic big brothers, right, works for Kevin Wardally, for accepting our invitation. Sir, you did not disappoint. And matter of fact, you exceeded all expectations once again. And for that, I thank you. I thank everybody here. I hope everybody's enjoying the holiday season. I do want to make sure that I thank everybody for your support this past few months. As y'all know, this was our first semester enrolled at the aptly named Morgan State University. I took on semester responsibilities this semester. I was elected the vice president of the Morgan State Graduate Student Association. So we're doing some things there. And I also was able to pull out a 4.0 this semester, which is the first time in my entire life I ever did that. So I want to thank you all for your support in that regard. And looking forward to 2022 and more Masonic light here on the Prince Hall Think Tank. So if I start getting little bags under my eyes next couple months, y'all know why. But I'm happy to be here, and I just thank you all so much for your continued love and support and your understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Morgan. Brother Jack.
Yes, sir. Before I begin, if you just mind, I could just do this for just a minute. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, unfortunately, I was not able to find and be able to wear this hat, but I did still have a picture of it. And this hat is not just special as far as this episode, but a special period. 4 years ago in 2017, I had the opportunity and the pleasure of visiting the U. I was invited by then Worshipful Master and now Right Worshipful Daquan Elamine to come give a lecture through my good friend Right Worshipful Wardally, who did one of the forwards for my book Keys to Leadership. And so my father, who was born in Georgia, but lived in New York for many, many years. At that time, he was sick, and he knew I was coming home to Harlem, and so he said, I need you to do me two things. I need you to go to my favorite bakery and get my favorite Danish, because around the time that I was going, it was his birthday. So he said, I need you to give me one of my favorite Danishes, and I need you to buy me a hat that has Harlem on it. So Past Master Luther Smith, he met me at Right Worshipful St. Dino's job. We went around, we went out to eat, we went to the Schoberg Center, and then we walked from 135th Street back to 125th. And during that time, I saw, someone selling some hats, and this was the hat that I bought my father and took back to him when I came back from the trip. That same year in 2017, my father passed away. So I dedicate this show to my father. Again, this was the hat that I bought, and I wanted to share that with everyone. I pray that everyone is continue to have a blessed holiday. Please know that as we end this year and get ready for another year, whatever you have gone through, whatever trials and tribulations you have gone through, smile, because you still have made it. And whatever God you serve, the God that you serve, thank him for, allowing you to be able to see another year. And regardless of what you have happened, because of him, you are still here. You are stronger because of it, and you get all the glory for it. To my friend, Right Worshipful Wardali, it's always great to see you, my brother. Always great to talk to you. I cannot end this show without giving a congratulations, because if I don't, I won't be going to sleep tonight. So I have to give a congratulations to my wife, Nashola Lytell Jack. She is officially a graduate of Johnson C. Smith University with a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration. She will be her commencement will actually be on Mother's Day in May, but she does have her official letter. She is officially done, so I want to give congratulations to her, babe. I love you. Thank you all. As always, you could be doing anything, but you have given the most precious gift that you could ever give anybody, and that's your time, because you cannot give it back. Thank you for giving the time to be here with us to learn, and we look forward for the great things that we'll see in the new year. So happy New Year to all.
Absolutely. And one last note. I'm sorry, Brother Jack, you reminded me of something. I got to give a shout out to happy birthday to my grandfather, Brother Gary Griffin of Fidelity Lodge number 439, I believe it is, in Alabama. He's turning years old tomorrow. So shout out to my grandfather who paved the way for me in many respects as a Mason and as a historian. And I love you, Granddad. So I hope to see you soon.
Thanks, brothers. And again, thanks to Brother Wadali for joining us this evening with a great presentation. This has been an amazing year. We're at the end of the year, but it's been an amazing year for the think tank. And I just want to take this time to thank our great guests that we've had this year. Obviously, our great audience. You guys do a great job, and asking the questions and the words of encouragement that you have given us this year has really been amazing. And, personally, I'd like to thank Brother Jack, Brother Morgan, and Brother Gillarm just for continuing to, help make this show a success. So thank you, good brothers. If you look at, speaking about culture again, if you look at any successful business or sports team, one of the things that they have in common is a great culture. Businesses actually spend millions of dollars and resources ensuring that a positive culture exists within their company, because they know and they understand that a positive culture leads to high productivity, low turnover, and a happy workforce. So if that's the case, shouldn't we pay more attention to the culture within our fraternity and ensure that it's positive? We need to invest the time in developing that positive culture, and you'll definitely see a shift in attitudes within the lodge. Thanks for joining us tonight. We hope you gained a little insight. Have a good evening. Happy New Year. And remember, let's teach Masonry in our lodges.
All right, thank you.